Hello there! In recent years, I've made some repair videos for the DualShock 4, like how to get rid of drift and how to repair the R2 and L2 buttons. But there's been some comments left on those videos that have baffled me. They point to yet another controller issue affecting people's gameplay, and it's one that I don't completely comprehend and I'm not 100% sure I know how to fix. From what I can tell, the gaming community itself hasn't completely wrapped their hands around this issue either. So in this video, I'm going to explain the issue, form some theories on what causes it, and come up with a possible way to resolve it. I would also like to get feedback from some of you, like whether or not you've experienced this issue and how you ended up dealing with it. So this is going to be a very nerdy video, but I enjoy solving technical issues like this, and hopefully you'll get some benefit from watching all this. So here's the issue. When pressing the L2 button, it causes upward movement on one of the analog sticks. So if it's a first-person shooter, that means when you aim the gun, it causes your character to move unintentionally. Are there sights to move unintentionally? I'm faking it in this video, but this is how people have described it. Here's another way to envision it. Watch how this gamer demonstrates the issue. For simplicity, let's call this problem L2 interference. I thought I knew a lot about the inner workings of the DualShock 4 because I did so much experimenting in order to create those videos I referenced earlier, but my brain has a hard time comprehending how one button on one side of the controller can affect a button on the other. It's like putting toast in a toaster and causing the microwave to come on or something. I don't know. But let me put my nerd cap on and feel my way through this. There are some clues I found that shed more light on this. I sampled 13 people who mentioned this issue, either in my own comment sections or somewhere else on the internet. 6 people saw the movement in their left analog stick, and 7 saw it on the right. Among all of them, it happened when they press L2. None of them mentioned it happening with R2, so that's kinda intriguing. Some people said they were able to make the issue go away by treating it as a drift problem, and therefore doing some of the things that people do to fix drift, which for the most part involves cleaning the analog sticks. I'll put a link in the description to my own drift repair videos if you're curious. However, some people said that the problem started after doing some of those drift repairs. They didn't say much more, but I would imagine the act of taking the controller apart and putting it back together must have triggered the issue. But the biggest clue I found was from a couple of users on the iFixit forums. So this guy said, so I finally found a fix and all I did is the sensors were loose. So I tightened the bolt from the battery pack holding the motherboard in place and tightened it very tight. Some of the English is obviously off, but it's a very important comment, I think. By bolt, I think he means screw. The other person said, the problem is buttons circuit and mainboard is not connecting each other perfectly. I don't think English is their first language either, but I get what they're saying. With all that in mind, let's take a deeper look inside the controller and point to some possible causes. I believe the last 2 people were talking about having a tight connection between this flexible circuit membrane and the main circuit board, which is right here. The buttons sit on top of the membrane, including L2, and pressing them causes a signal to travel through the membrane, and that signal jumps to the main board where it travels a little bit further. By removing the membrane from the plastic piece that holds it, you can get a good look at how it connects to the main board. I'm using the word connect very loosely here. The board and the membrane touch each other. They don't snap together. There are 18 circuit pads on this little flap, and those touch the 18 little pads on the main board. Everything is lined up and stacked together in a way that keeps those pads touching each other. There's one screw here that normally goes below the battery that tightens those stacks together. That tightness may be very important in getting the signals to the main board, which includes the ones from the L2. So theory number 1 about what causes L2 interference is that the screw underneath the battery is not tight enough. With that in mind, I tried to recreate the issue, loosening the screw as I pressed L2, and I had it plugged into a testing website, but I saw no upward movement on the analog stick. Of course, this is just one controller, which has one of many board variations that Sony has produced. My inability to reproduce the issue doesn't make me doubt the theory. I mentioned that some people seemed to have started experiencing the issue after they tried to remedy the drift on their analog stick, which may have involved taking the controller apart. It's possible when they put everything back together, they didn't tighten the screw enough. It's also possible that they caused the pads on the membrane and the board to be slightly out of alignment. So I'll put that as theory 2. The pads between the membrane and board may be out of alignment. I have some other ideas about possible causes. Here's the path of the L2 signals on the membrane. L2 is pressure sensitive, so the amount of pressure you put on it causes variation in the signal flowing through that path. Specifically, it forms a decibel number from 0 to 1 and any number in between. When that signal gets to the main board, it's hard to see where it goes from there, since all the traces get super tiny. But suffice to say, it travels a bit further through a tiny path. On the analog stick, an upward nudge would normally start with the potentiometer that's inside this door, and its signal would travel along its own tiny path along the board. It's possible that the L2 signal is somehow jumping from its path to the analog stick's path. It could be from the misaligned pads mentioned before, or perhaps it's because there's some debris on the board somewhere that's linking the two paths. So theory number 3 would be a short circuit is happening on the main board. I'll make one last theory. Maybe a drifty analog stick alone somehow causes the issue. I'm going to make this theory number 4. Analog drift causes the issue. Those are the 4 theories I'm sticking with, and it's possible that more than one of them is the cause. It's also possible that none of them are the cause, and I completely don't understand the issue. But if I was experiencing this issue, I would try to resolve it with a kitchen sink approach. I would disassemble the controller, clean the analog stick that has the upward movement, also clean the entire board with alcohol and a toothbrush in case there's some debris causing a short circuit. And I would carefully put everything back together and make sure that screw below the battery is tight. In the end, I am not a certified electronics expert, but if you have anything that you would like to add that would expand my understanding, please let me know in the comments. In the meantime, if you would like to see instructions on how to resolve analog stick drift on your DualShock 4, I put a link to my best video about it on the screen right there. So long, everybody.